Hey guys, first off, thank you so much for watching my last video and all my other videos. If you haven't had a chance to look at them, make sure you check them out right after this. And also, hit that subscription button that's down there in this corner, I think, if you don't mind. I really do appreciate everybody's support. And also, I hope your quarantine's going well. And that's why we're shooting this video indoors. Tomorrow, though, I'm taking my son Kane fishing. So that should be an adventure in itself. But today I want to talk to you about something that's really cool, and it's a rig that has been around for quite some time, and that rig is the Tokyo rig. The Tokyo rig kind of hit the market last year. It's by VMC, and it kind of took everything by storm, but you know, there's a little like backstory on the Tokyo rig. There's actually a rig out there called a Jika rig, which is Jika, I think is how it's spelled, and it was, as far as I know, the prior knowledge of mine that comes from that rig is actually from the Ozarks, fishing Table Rock and Lake of the Ozarks and some of those places. Guys like Stacy King, Tommy Martin have been fishing this rig for a very, very long time. I know I've seen articles about it, and I've actually been fishing this rig for quite a while as well. It is a rig that is so versatile and catches a lot of fish. I don't actually have a Tokyo rig, like I don't have one, but I'm going to show you how I make my own and make it work for me. So basically, this is what a Tokyo rig is. It has in the case of the VMC one, it actually has a wire form that goes straight down, and that you can add a like Texas rig weight to, or a couple of them for that matter. The way I fish it is a tiny bit different, and the way I make mine is just slightly different than what the Tokyo rig is, but I've caught a lot of fish on mine. I'm not saying you can't catch them on a Tokyo rig, but I like to interchange mine, add hooks, add different plastics, and today I'm going to break down exactly how I build mine and exactly what plastics, rods, reels, and everything I fish with that Tokyo rig or Jika rig that we've done for a long time, especially in places like Table Rock Lake. So first off, the rig itself, the way I build it is I use a couple different types of hooks. I use wide gaps, use straight shanks. And in this case, this is just an owner offset worm wide gap hook. Actually, Todd Castledine turned me onto this hook. I really like it. It's more of a straighter shank. As you can tell, the point of the hook is a different angle than the line tie. And the other important aspect of this is you got to have that flat line tie for the way that I build this. So basically, and I hope you can see this because I'm going to zoom in here so you can see, but you know that little snap that comes on the front of a wiggle wart, speed trap, stuff like that? I get one of those. You can buy them separately. I just typically steal them off an old wiggle wart. I say old, like a new wiggle wart. I steal them off one of those. And I get a larger size split ring. I'll upspend on my split rings for this rig. I'll get a split ring, or I mean, there's a bunch of different ones. They're good. Just make sure you get one that's sturdy and a little bit larger than your typical split ring that you find like on a square bill or something. And basically all you do is you attach that snap to the swivel first. That's what I always do first. And then you attach the top of the snap, and I'll explain it to you here in a second. So then all you do is you put your hook on the split ring. But the important aspect of it is you want, here we go, I got it hooked. Gosh, it's so hard to do. I could use pliers, but in the case of this video, I just chose not to, and obviously you're seeing the results of that. So basically, once you get it on there, if I can ever get it, oh, I got it on there, all right, cool. So I got it on there, I'm putting the hook on, the hook is on. So as you can see, the hook stands straight out, and my little snap is hanging down there below. Well then, the cool thing about it is I get drop shot weights. Your cylindrical type drop shot weights. I use the one that have the little, they don't have the little crease, like where you can crease it down on there. This actually has the circle. A couple companies make them. One in particular is Titan Tungsten, and that's what this is. So basically, what I do is I take that little thing, I put it on that snap like so, if I can get it on there, just like that, and I close that snap up, and voila, you have your own handmade Tokyo rig. Interchange your weights extremely easy. You don't have to bend them, do all that stuff. Literally, you just throw that weight on there and it's ready to rock. So basically, that's how I do it. I always carry a bunch of different sizes of cylindrical weights for this rig in particular. I throw anywhere between a quarter and a half ounce. I really, a lot of guys, I've seen some guys using 1/8 ounce and stuff like that around shallow water grass. But in the case of the way I fish it, and I'll explain that later, I actually use a quarter or a 3/8 most of the time. And that's how it is, just like that. So it's a free swinging weight. This is probably just a little bit a hair size too big of a split ring. But for the sake of the video, I wanted to get a really big one so you could see. But basically, that's all it is. It's like a short wire drop shot is basically what it is. So now that I've shown you how to make your own, and it is so super easy, I'm going to talk to you about a few of the plastics that I like to fish on it. Now, when I started out fishing this thing, I fished just about one plastic on it. And that is a Strike King 3-inch rodent. So when I grew up fishing this thing, we were fishing on Table Rock and Beaver Lake and places like that. And you needed that finesse style plastic, and that 3-inch rodent is the perfect profile for a small crawfish. So I would use that. And one of the important aspects is to make sure you Texpose that plastic. And basically, it's like a little crawfish sitting up off the bottom. And the effectiveness of this is, and I want you to imagine this here. If you're dragging a football jig down on the bottom and you're on a really rocky place, like a Table Rock, an Amistad, Cumberland, something like that, that jig sometimes gets hidden. And what this rig does is it keeps the actual plastic up off the bottom when that weight's down there, but not so far off that it looks unrealistic. So basically what this does is it makes it look extremely realistic, and that's how it actually sits up there and just sits there and shakes. So that's one plastic I like to use. Another one I like to use in that finesse crawfish situation is a baby rage crawl. You can't beat it, man. Like, I know it seems like super finesse, but like you catch a really big fish, especially big smallmouth on this rig. This was actually, believe it or not, this was a rig that I helped kind of develop my pattern at Cumberland when I figured that deal out. And it put a lot of fish in the boat in practice for me, got me a lot of bites. I could shake them off really easy with that rig. So fast forward to this time of year. So how does this help you right now? And that's what I want to talk to you about. That's when I put on a 4-inch Ocho. I know, it's a 4-inch Ocho. I fish it everywhere. I do a lot of things with it. But basically, the 4-inch Ocho, the reason I picked that is, A, it's a smaller profile bait, but it still has that stickworm style body to it. And I rigged that one up on a wide gap hook. I want a little bit wider gap so I have a better hookup ratio. And basically, it's just like a mini drop shot, but I like flipping this on beds. So when I'm bed fishing, or if I'm fishing a specific target, that's when I'm going to throw the 4-inch Ocho. It gets the job done. The other bait that I'll put on that whenever I'm bed fishing is the 3.25-inch Rage Swimmer. You'd be surprised how good that Rage Swimmer works on that Tokyo rig. And, in the same way, I use the wide gap hook the same exact way that I did on the 4-inch Ocho. And just like so. So, just like this. Basically, all you're doing is taking it in there, rig it up. You don't want to go too far to where it impedes the action of the split ring. And then you want to Texpose it. So you're running out the back. And the cool thing about that Rage Swimmer is actually has like a cavity on the back. So that hook will lay in there perfectly. So, basically you're drop shotting a swim bait, and it looks so unbelievably realistic. And in this case, I'm actually going to go to a 1/2 ounce weight because I want to make sure I keep bottom contact. And that's extremely important with this Jika rig or this Tokyo rig, is keeping bottom contact and not shaking the plastic or shaking the weight too much. So we've covered those couple of things. Worst case scenario, you can throw a mag finesse worm or a fat baby finesse worm on there. That works effectively. However, there are situations where you can upsize your tackle, put you a flipping hook on there. I like a 4/0 owner jungle hook. That's what I use primarily when I'm flipping anyway. And that's when I'll upsize it. I'll put a 3/8 ounce weight on there, and I'll put a rage bug, a normal size rage bug. And I think just for the matter of how realistic that rage bug looks, you put it on that little head and you're shaking it down there on the bottom. You're shaking the plastic more so than you're shaking the weight. And I think that's actually what draws that strike in. But when I'm maxing it out and I'm putting a bigger bait, that is the bait that I put on there. So I've given you a rundown of how to make your own, what baits to throw, and now I'm going to talk to you about tackle. So 9 times out of 10, and I'm not talking heavy cover situations. Heavy cover situations are their own animal. You need to upsize your tackle. But in the case of how I fish it, how I grew up fishing it, how I've continued to fish it this entire time, I use it on a Finesse jig rod. This is the Lose Custom Series. This is a remake of the white and black rod that I used to win Cumberland. It's just when I'm thinking Finesse jigs, football jigs, any type of jig that I'm fishing where I'm flipping it out or fishing it close, I'm using this rod. I just like it. I have a lot of confidence in it. It works extremely well. You want to rig this on like 15 to 17 pound test. I use the Strike King Tour grade fluorocarbon. Again, I mean, I just think it's a really strong line. It's fluorocarbon. It's invisible in the water. Has no stretch, and that's what you need for this technique. Use a fast gear ratio reel. This is a 7.5-to-1 custom Lite Lose reel. But I want to explain to you the process of fishing this. I mean, so beyond everything else, what makes this rig so effective is how long you can leave it in the strike zone but still give the bait action. So what I mean by that is when I'm fishing this, whether I'm pitching it or casting it, I'm casting it towards targets or to where I think a fish is sitting. So whether it's a bed, a log, a rock, wherever it is, and that's actually when I utilize my Panoptix live scope. I can see these targets, I can see these individual fish. I'll flip that rig out there, okay? And what I do is I do this little slow shake of the rod. I'm barely shaking the tip of the rod. It might seem like you're not giving that bait any action, but if you keep that, and you're shaking slack line, that's an important aspect of it. You're shaking your slack line, and what that's doing, and it's making that bait quiver down there. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to hop it fast. You just want to barely shake that rod real slow, and that bait's just going to sit down there and quiver just like that. And that's an important aspect of this rig, is to make sure you make that bait quiver, because at that point, that's when this bait's going to look the most realistic in the water, and that's when the fish are going to eat it the most. And I'm telling you guys, if you like fishing a jig, a football jig, a finesse jig, flipping a jig, whatever it is, this is a great backup to doing that. And also, I mean, look at the success it's had. I mean, there's guys winning all over the country using this rig around grass, rock, wood, it doesn't matter. So make sure you get you one of these rigs. Build your own. I mean, you don't have to buy the one that's there. Build your own. Use the hook that you like. Use the weights that you like. I hope I've laid it out for you extremely well. I hope that you can go out there and use this rig, catch some fish. I know Kane and I are going to go catch a lot of fish tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned for my next video. Again, thank you so much, and I appreciate you watching.